Hey guys, welcome back to my CCNA 200-301 course. In this video, I'm going to talk about Layer 2 Discovery Protocols. Are you ready? Let's get started. When I say Layer 2 Discovery Protocols, I mean CDP and LLDP. CDP stands for Cisco Discovery Protocol and LLDP stands for Link Layer Discovery Protocol. CDP was a proprietary Cisco protocol and Cisco introduced it for the first time when no other vendors had such a similar protocol in their devices. But a few years back, Cisco released the RFC for this protocol and nowadays you may see it in other vendors' devices as well. But LLDP was a standard protocol since the beginning, and the standard number is 802.1 AB, and based on the number you can figure out it's a IEEE standard protocol. Before I show you these commands practically, I want to show you something. I want to show you what generally CDP and LLDP can show you and what sort of information will be delivered. The first one is device ID, which is the neighboring device host name. The second information is local interface, which means which interface of my is connected to this neighbor. The third information is capability, R and B. The legend is up here, so you can figure out this neighboring device has the routing capabilities as well as source route bridge. What is the neighboring platform? Since I'm using GNS3 and it's been emulated as an IOU device, it detects it as a Linux, Unix, something like that. But if you have a real devices, it will be detected as like ISR 4433. It's a Nexus something. It's the hardware and the model number of the device. And the port ID is the other side's port, which means I am connecting to Ethernet 01 of that device. LLDP shows similar information, but as you can see, the platform is not here. It can show you the device ID, local interface, the port ID or remote interface and the capability, but it cannot show you the platform. This is the information. This is one of the differences between CDP and LLDP. The other thing is CDP is able to figure out the IGMP capability of the other device. At the CCNA level, we will not be talking about IGMP. But IGMP is a multicast protocol that can help you with the multicasting. But anyway, CDP is able to figure out if the neighboring device has this capability or not, but LLDP does not have this capability. And the other thing, as far as you can see, is this coding information is different between the two. There are some common names like R for router, but the other information, the coding is different between CDP and LLDP. And the other difference, as I mentioned before, is LLDP is a standard protocol, so you can find it in pretty much all vendors' devices, but CDP is actually used to be Cisco proprietary, but still it's not been implemented in all vendors' devices. There might be some out there, but not been implemented in all devices. All right, let's jump on our scenario and run these commands in action. Okay, this is our today's scenario. We have three devices, router 1 and router 2 and switch 2. We have CDP here because this switch does not support LLDP, and we have CDP and LLDP here. Real world devices, Cisco devices, support both CDP and LLDP, but since it's an emulated device, this switch actually does not support LLDP. But don't worry about the real devices. All Cisco switches support LLDP. So I'm going to show you how you can start with CDP and LLDP and how you can get the required information from these two protocols. The first set of commands I want to show you are related to general CDP information. I mean, what is the status of CDP on the device itself, which is show CDP. As far as you can see, it says CDP packets sends every 60 seconds. This is the interval, the default interval that Cisco packets are getting advertised. And sending a hold time value of 180 seconds, which means this was that hold time you saw in the show CDP neighbors output. This means I will wait for 180 seconds. If I do not receive CDP messages from my neighbor within this period, then that neighbor is gone. So it's not my neighbor anymore. So I will be removing it from my neighboring list. And finally, CDP version 2 advertisement is enabled. So far, 2 versions of CDP has been introduced, version 1 and version 2. And on this device, as far as you can see, CDP version 2 is enabled. We can change these values on the devices. How we can do that? We can just simply go to global configuration mode and say CDP timer and change the timer based on the seconds. These are the values you can set on the device. I'm not sure, but this value might be different on different platforms. But anyway, this is where you can change the CDP timer on the device. And also for the hold time in the global configuration mode, we say hold time, and again between this range, and it's based on the seconds. LLDP commands within this space, pretty much the same. I mean, it's all the same. If I go to privilege mode and I say show LLDP, it gives me same information. The first one is the status of LLDP is active. Normally, at least based on my experience, LLDP is not enabled on Cisco devices by default, and you have to enable it. I'll show you how. But CDP is enabled by default. But anyway, I might be wrong on some devices. By this command, you can figure it out if LLDP is enabled on your device or not. Advertisement is 30 seconds, which you can see it's different from CDP. By default, CDP sends advertisement every 60 seconds. In LLDP, it's 30 seconds. And the hold time is also different. It's 120 seconds in compared to 180 seconds. And the initialization delay is 2 seconds. Okay? So for LLDP also, if you want to change these timers, we can say LLDP timer and timer in seconds, or LLDP hold time and hold time based on the seconds. To enable or disable CDP on the devices, we have 2 options. To either globally disable or enable CDP or LLDP, or do it per interface. It's up to you. So to enable or disable CDP and LLDP globally on the whole device, on all interfaces, we say CDP run. This will enable it if it's not been enabled, and obviously no CDP run will be disable it. And the similar thing is true for LLDP. LLDP run and no LLDP run. If I run show LLDP here now, you can see that LLDP status is active. But if I say no LLDP run and I run that command again, you can see that it says LLDP is not enabled. And I can re-enable it by saying LLDP run. But if you want to do it per interface, the commands are different between CDP and LLDP. For CDP, if you want to disable it on a specific interface, we say no CDP enable. And this will be actually disabling the CDP on that interface. And obviously, if you want to enable it, you say CDP enable. But for LLDP, you can separate the sending and receiving LLDP. So you can select which direction you want to restrict LLDP. Either send it, do not send it, or send it, or receive it, or do not receive it. It's up to you. So you can say no LLDP transmit or no LLDP receive. So you can disable or enable it in one direction only, or you can do it on both directions. So no LLDP receive, no LLDP transmit, and also LLDP receive, LLDP transmit. Now let's review some show commands. The first command that I personally use to fetch the CDP or LLDP information is show CDP neighbors. I explained this output so I don't spend more time on it. You can customize this output for a specific interface. You want to know, for example, what device is being connected to this specific interface. So in that case, we say show CDP neighbors and say Ethernet 0/0, for example. Who is my neighbor on interface Ethernet 0/0? And similar thing is true for LLDP. Show LLDP neighbors. LLDP is not enabled, so we have to enable it first. Clear my screen. Show LLDP neighbors. As I mentioned, only we have LLDP on the router, but not on the switch. And also show LLDP neighbors Ethernet 0/1. With this command, you can customize the output for a specific interface. The information that show CDP neighbors or LLDP neighbors show you are not the only information CDP and LLDP can show you. There are much more than that. If you need more details about your neighbor, you can run show CDP neighbors detail, which gives you more information about your neighbor, including the IP address, and also the software version, and much more information if you're working with real devices like MAC address, etc. This output, if you have many neighbors, this output might not be very possible for you. So you may need to look for a specific neighbor and you don't know how to find it within a long list. So we can have this list for a specific neighbor, but you need to know what is the neighbor's host name. So you can use it here, show CDP entry, and then give the host name of the other device. For my example, it's router 2. So this entry is the detail for that specific neighbor. But as I mentioned, you need to know the host name of the device, which you can grab it from show CDP neighbors, obviously. There is a similar command for LLDP as well. Show LLDP neighbors, show LLDP entry, and then the host name, router 2. And as you can see, it can give you similar information about the neighboring device. 2 more commands and we can wrap up our today's video. First one is show CDP traffic. This gives you statistics about the CDP packets have been traversed on your device. How many packets? Version 1, version 2, total packets, input, output, fails, checksum errors, etc. LLDP also has the similar command, show LLDP traffic, which gives you how many different types of LLDP traffic has been traversed through your device. And the final command is the command that shows you if CDP is enabled on the interface or not. And that is show CDP interface and, for example, Ethernet 0/0. It gives you the information. When it says sending CDP packets every 60 seconds, this means CDP is enabled on this device. If it's not, it says CDP is not enabled. We can do that. If I go to interface Ethernet 0/0 and I say no CDP enable and clear my screen, and now if I say show CDP interface Ethernet 0/0, you can see that it says CDP is not enabled on this interface. Similar thing for LLDP, show LLDP interface Ethernet 0/0. It's been enabled. TX, RX, as I mentioned, can be directionally. You can select which direction you want to enable or disable. So the output shows you in which direction it's been enabled or disabled. Alright guys, this was our today's video. In the next video, I'll be talking about how you can bundle Cisco switches interfaces. I wish you enjoyed today's video and see you in the next ones.